Invisible Killer by Elham Ghoreishi. I've made the definitive decision to embark on the journey of emigration. Regardless of the inherent challenges that come with such a significant change, I am resolute in my determination to make this move. I have reached a point where I can no longer thrive in Russia, and I crave a fresh start where I can truly find my place. It's disheartening to realize that, despite my proficiency in my profession, I remain virtually invisible here. Curious about my occupation? Well, I am a serial killer. Let me unfold the intricate tapestry of my family life, a saga marked by my enduring invisibility. In the complex mosaic of our familial dynamics, I occupied a unique and lonely space, a perpetual observer in the shadows, neither cast as the virtuous child nor the wayward one. My parents' regard for me was neither warm nor cold, it was simply indifferent. They neither lavished me with praise nor reprimanded me for my actions. It was as if I were a ghost within my own family, a presence that neither caused joy nor sorrow. The melancholic weight of this persistent obscurity bore heavily upon my soul. The knowledge that I was neither encouraged nor punished by my parents fostered a profound sadness within me. I yearned for their acknowledgment, for even a fragment of the affection and guidance that was so freely bestowed upon my sister. Ah, my sister, the luminous star of our family's constellation. She effortlessly commanded attention with her radiant charisma, drawing the adoration and praise of our parents and relatives. Her triumphs were celebrated as grand achievements, her dreams nurtured with care. In her presence, my own existence seemed to wither into insignificance. Driven by a desperate need to break free from the confines of my invisibility, I channeled my energies into excelling academically. My grades and accomplishments became my voice, my silent plea for recognition. Yet, my sister's brilliance eclipsed my every effort. The applause and admiration continued to flow in her direction, while I remained relegated to the periphery, an afterthought in my family's narrative. In moments of despair, I allowed myself to transgress, hoping that the stark disparity between my sister's virtuousness and my own misdeeds would, at last, cast me into the spotlight. But even in my moments of rebellion, it was my sister who bore the brunt of the punishments, leaving me perpetually unseen, a phantom in our family's drama. 1. The enigma of my invisibility seemed to be woven into the very fabric of my being, an immutable trait that defied my every effort to escape it. I had become the eternal observer, a spectre in the theater of my own life, watching as my sister's radiant performances took center stage. This condition of being unseen, etched into my identity, was a source of both bitterness and resignation. As I ventured beyond the confines of my family, I carried this unspoken burden with me, a yearning for acknowledgment and validation that had always eluded me, a longing to escape the shadows and step into the light. The predicament of not being seen was not confined solely to the walls of my family home, it extended its suffocating grip to every facet of my life. It was as though I were a spectre, a being of little consequence to all those around me. At school, the teachers' eyes glazed over me, their attention directed toward the more vocal and active students. My achievements and efforts, however diligent, were like whispers in a cacophony of voices, barely registering in the classroom's bustling atmosphere. The neighborhood, too, was a place where I drifted on the periphery, a shadowy presence among the lively interactions of neighbors. I observed their exchanges, their camaraderie, and their shared laughter, but I remained detached, a bystander in the tapestry of their lives. Even my classmates, with whom I spent countless hours, seemed to look through me rather than at me. In group activities, I would often be relegated to the sidelines, my ideas and contributions easily forgotten amidst the hubbub of more assertive voices. My existence was like an afterthought, my presence blending seamlessly into the background. You might wonder why this persistent invisibility plagued me. The truth is, I never quite understood it myself. It wasn't that I lacked a voice or personality. I was simply overlooked, like a quiet whisper drowned out by the clamor of the world around me. As the years passed, I grappled with this enigmatic aspect of my existence, longing to be seen and acknowledged for who I truly was. The question of why this invisibility persisted remained a haunting mystery, one that I was determined to unravel in my journey through life. As I ventured into adolescence, the persistent feeling of being unseen became increasingly exasperating, particularly in the realm of romantic interests. It was as if I had a cloak of invisibility that rendered me imperceptible to girls. They neither harbored affection for me nor bore any animosity. I was simply absent from their radar, neither loved nor hated, just an indistinct presence on the periphery of their lives. 2. It wasn't as though I was an unattractive or frightening teenager. Some might even venture to say that I was handsome in my own right. But regardless of my physical appearance or inequalities, it seemed that I was destined to remain a phantom, forever overlooked in the tapestry of budding relationships and youthful infatuations. It was during these formative years that the weight of my unseen existence became most pronounced. While my peers embarked on their journeys of self-discovery and romantic exploration, I found myself caught in a perplexing paradox. I possessed the desire for connection, to be noticed, to have someone look at me with affection or desire, yet my presence continued to slip through the fingers of those I yearned to connect with. I would watch as my friends experienced the highs and lows of teenage love, their hearts fluttering with excitement or sinking in heartbreak. I longed for those emotional highs and lows, those moments of vulnerability and passion that seemed to evade me. But the girls I encountered appeared oblivious to my existence, and my attempts to break free from the bonds of invisibility proved futile. The irony of my situation was not lost on me. I existed, and I knew I had qualities that were worthy of recognition and affection. Yet, it was as if an unseen force conspired to keep me hidden from the world's gaze, a paradox that became increasingly frustrating as the years passed. As I navigated the tumultuous waters of adolescence, I couldn't help but wonder why this invisibility persisted, why I remained unseen in a world teeming with life and possibility. It was a question that would continue to haunt me, driving me to seek answers and find a way to break free from the shackles of my own obscurity. Upon completing high school, I embarked on a new chapter of my life as an apprentice at a butcher shop located 2 neighborhoods away from my parents' house. The choice of becoming a butcher, perhaps, echoed the pervasive theme of my existence, a profession where I could work diligently behind the scenes, unnoticed, as I had grown accustomed to. Leaving my parents' house was a step toward independence, and I rented a modest house for myself. It was a simple life, devoid of the complexities and expectations that had marked my youth. The anonymity of my existence persisted. Neither the butcher nor my new neighbors paid much attention to me. I had mastered the art of fading into the background, becoming a silent presence in the tapestry of my own life. Nights were often spent in solitude, a routine I had grown accustomed to. I would sit in front of the television, a glass of vodka in hand, seeking solace in the flickering images that danced across the screen. The vodka served as a temporary antidote to the persistent ache of being unseen, a fleeting escape from the reality of my existence. Sometimes, I would engage in a solitary game of chess, pitting myself against the stark black and white pieces on the board. It was a symbolic reflection of my life, me against 3. Myself, a quiet battle in the dimly lit corners of my rented house. The chessboard became a metaphor for the complexities of human connection, where every move mattered, and every decision had consequences. As I moved further into adulthood, the routines of my life remained largely unchanged. The world outside continued to overlook me, and I, in turn, had grown adept at shielding myself from the sting of rejection and indifference. On one ordinary evening, as I sat in front of the TV, consumed by boredom, the idea struck me to take my glass of vodka to our neighborhood bar. So, I set off on foot to the nearby establishment, seeking a change of scenery and perhaps a momentary escape from the mundane. As expected, my arrival at the bar went unnoticed, just another face blending into the background of lively conversations and laughter. Yet, amid the crowd, my attention was captivated by a striking woman who, like me, seemed to be vying for the attention of others in the room. Summoning a semblance of courage, I approached her, hoping to break free from the persistent shackles of being unseen. With a tentative smile, I offered to buy her a drink, silently yearning for a connection, even if only for a fleeting moment. Much like my previous encounters, my gesture seemed to go unnoticed by her. She remained oblivious to my presence, but her gaze briefly flickered toward the money in my pocket. It was an unexpected turn of events as she agreed to share a drink with me. The conversation flowed, and we discovered common ground in our shared sense of isolation. On a whim, I suggested that she accompany me back to my house, and to my surprise, she accepted. What followed that night was a transaction, an exchange of intimacy for the money I could offer, filling a void in my life, if only temporarily. The experience, though unconventional, was unexpectedly pleasant for me. It offered a reprieve from the relentless solitude that had defined my existence, a brief respite from the feeling of being unseen. This encounter marked the beginning of a curious routine that would repeat itself every weekend, with different women seeking money in the arms of a stranger, and me continuing to navigate the complexities of connection in my own peculiar way. In the dimly lit confines of my small house, I found myself once again in the familiar company of my television and a glass of vodka. The television screen cast an eerie glow across the room as I settled in, seeking to drown my solitude in the amber liquid. As I flipped through the channels, the image of a notorious serial killer, freshly apprehended, dominated the screen. The media had descended upon this grisly spectacle with a voracious appetite for sensationalism. It seemed that the entire world had shifted its gaze to this malevolent figure, and the news was ablaze with stories about his heinous crimes. For a brief moment, the serial killer had become the focal point of the collective consciousness. The world was captivated by his sinister deeds, and every detail of his life was dissected in the public eye. News anchors, reporters, and pundits delved into the depths of his psyche, attempting to unravel the enigma of his darkness. It struck me as a profound irony how someone so malevolent and destructive could command such unwavering attention, while I, a mere bystander in life, remained perpetually unseen. The world's fascination with this man, who had left a trail of terror in his wake, contrasted sharply with my own enduring obscurity. As I watched the relentless coverage of the serial killer's arrest, I couldn't help but wonder about the peculiar nature of human attention. It was a paradoxical reminder of the world's tendency to focus on the extremes, whether it be the depths of depravity or the heights of fame, while those who existed in the vast middle ground, like myself, continued to exist in the shadows, ignored and unremarkable. The television continued to drone on, delivering an unending stream of updates and analysis on the serial killer. It was a stark reminder of the skewed priorities of the world outside, where my own existence remained an afterthought, overshadowed by the macabre allure of sensationalism. In that solitary moment, I couldn't help but contemplate the complexities of human perception and the strange and inexplicable forces that dictated who was seen and who was not in the grand theater of life. You can probably surmise the thoughts that consumed my mind on that particular night and the overwhelming temptation that gripped me. As the days passed, that temptation ceased to be a mere fleeting thought and transformed into decisive action during one weekend when another woman crossed the threshold into my house. It's clear that ending the life of an inebriated woman in your apartment isn't a particularly challenging task. Moreover, in a sprawling metropolis like Moscow, disposing of her delicate remains would be even simpler, given my unremarkable existence, where no one pays me any mind. Nevertheless, it's important to emphasize that I took great care to avoid leaving any trace of my presence behind, fully aware that society has little regard for a mere murderer. In the grim realm of serial killers, one must acknowledge the stark reality: they mercilessly claim multiple victims before finally garnering the attention they seek. To qualify as a serial killer, one must have committed a minimum of 3 murders, with each deadly act carefully spaced apart. It's not enough, for instance, to cause a mass casualty incident by plowing a car into a bakery line, resulting in the simultaneous deaths of 30 individuals, such an act wouldn't classify as serial killing. Despite the escalating body count, the police had paid little heed to my heinous activities until the third and fourth murders. The lives of prostitutes, it seemed, held scant importance in the eyes of the government, and my victims were relegated to the margins of society. I exploited this neglect, biding my time and allowing the darkness to fester. However, the media's revelation that a serial killer was systematically targeting prostitutes shook the city to its core. The authorities were forced to acknowledge the grave threat I posed, and the spotlight was finally on me. Panic spread through the underworld, and the urgency to capture me became apparent. In response to the growing pressure, I tried a different tactic. I began deliberately leaving clues to my address, banking on the assumption that the police would find them. I wanted them to get closer, to come for me, but it seemed that even these blatant hints went unnoticed or ignored. As the police slowly mobilized their forces for my capture, I was well aware of the mounting evidence I had left behind, and I became increasingly convinced that my arrest was imminent. The sheer number of murders and the carelessness that had crept into my actions weighed heavily on my conscience. Despite my growing anxiety and the nagging certainty that my days were numbered, I couldn't suppress the urge to continue my deadly spree. By the time I had committed the 9th murder, the police still hadn't managed to apprehend me. The tension in the city was palpable, a stifling cloud that hung over my every move, as I remained one step ahead of the law, silently awaiting the inevitable moment when my reign of terror would come to a close. A profound sense of discouragement weighed heavily upon me. I yearned for the police to intensify their efforts to capture me, to unveil the hidden trail I had left behind. But despite their diligent attempts, it seemed as though I had perfected the art of invisibility. No trace of my presence was found, and I continued to elude their grasp. The relentless cycle of targeting vulnerable prostitutes had taken its toll on me. I grew weary of the hunt, the twisted power I held over their lives. It was time for a change in my behavior, a calculated shift towards a more careful approach. On weekends, I adopted a different guise. Instead of prowling the dark corners of the city, I would stroll through Pare Meso, clutching my bottle of vodka, and engage in chess games with homeless old men. Chess had always been my favorite game, a cerebral pursuit that offered a stark contrast to the darkness within me. 6. As the night wore on, and the old men became unsuspecting victims of my sinister impulses, I would end their lives with a brutal strike to the head or by suffocation. With methodical precision, I would then slip away into the shadows, making my way back home unnoticed. It was a chilling routine, one that brought me an unsettling sense of satisfaction in my ability to remain unseen. The city around me continued to carry on, blissfully unaware of the malevolent presence in its midst. No one saw me, and no one arrested me. It was as if I had become a phantom, a spectre that existed beyond the realm of human perception, hidden in plain sight, and free to carry out my gruesome acts with impunity. The aftermath of my heinous acts played out before the eyes of both the police and the general public. They bore witness to the lifeless bodies of my victims, their gruesome discoveries etching nightmares into their consciousness. Yet, amidst the chaos and horror, I remained unseen, an elusive phantom. I was still very much alive, lurking in the shadows, but I had perfected the art of invisibility to a degree that baffled both law enforcement and the community at large. It was as if I had become a ghost, my presence slipping through the cracks of their perception. The fact that I existed, yet remained invisible, inflicted a profound and agonizing pain within me. I longed to be recognized, to have my actions acknowledged, even if it meant facing the consequences of my atrocities. But it seemed that I had become an enigma, a dark force that operated beyond the scope of human comprehension. Each passing day, the weight of my invisibility grew heavier, a relentless reminder of the twisted existence I had carved for myself. The dichotomy of being alive and unseen haunted my every waking moment, a cruel paradox that fueled both my obsession and my despair. The story had reached an unbearable impasse. Frustrated by the maddening dichotomy of my existence, I took a desperate step. I decided to confront the police directly. I dialed their number, my heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and determination. When they answered, I provided them with my home address, even going so far as to visit the police station in person. But instead of the response I had hoped for, they greeted me with indifference. The officers dismissed my actions as mere nuisance, an unwarranted distraction from their ongoing investigation. They admonished me, warning that my actions could result in my arrest, but not for the crimes I desperately wanted to be apprehended for. This revelation was a crushing blow. I had yearned for arrest, for the world to finally see me as the serial killer I had become, and to bring an end to the torment of my own invisibility. Instead, I had unwittingly placed myself in the category of a mere annoyance to law enforcement. 7. The frustration and despair that welled up within me were nearly unbearable. I had crossed the threshold into a dark and twisted world of my own creation, where the desire for recognition had driven me to the brink of madness. The cruel irony of my predicament continued to haunt me, as I struggled to reconcile my macabre yearnings with the bewildering reality of my existence. That is why I made this difficult decision. I decided to leave my country, where I have never been seen before. I hope the police, people and my future victims will see me in the new country. The end. Elham Ghoreishi.